Iron City built. It's time for the Steel City Nation podcast. Here's your host, Mark Mariday.
Hey, Steel City Nation. I'd like to welcome my guest today, Gus Frerotte, former NFL quarterback, played 15 years in the league, currently is the host of Huddle Up with Gus podcast, which will let him tell us a little bit about later. Gus, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing well myself. Long day of teaching, but I love doing my podcast right afterwards.
Well, that's good. You need something to unwind with.
Absolutely.
You do a podcast. Most people have a drink of wine. You do a podcast.
Yeah, that's my downtime. I try to avoid any bad habits.
If you were in Pittsburgh, you'd be drinking an Iron City. That would really. I don't know if that would unwind you or just put you to sleep.
I'd probably have more than one of those too if I was in Pittsburgh. Probably only cost me maybe $1.50 each.
Yeah, it would be very much.
Hey, Gus. Okay, so you go to Ford City High School in Western PA, graduate, go on and play in Tulsa. What was it like playing in? Was it the American Athletic Conference then? And why'd you choose Tulsa?
Well, we were independent back then. I chose Tulsa because when I was getting recruited, I was recruited by Louisville, Howard Schnellenberger. I got recruited by Kansas State, which was felt like a million miles away from Pittsburgh. Yeah. Temple, which had a 10-foot chain link fence around it when I went there. So I wasn't real thrilled about that growing up out in Armstrong County in the country.
Yeah.
So it was kind of between Louisville and Tulsa, and Coach Rader, who was the head coach there, and Howard Schnellenberger was at Louisville. Coach Rader came to see me twice. I knew they threw the ball just as much as Louisville did. I appreciated him taking the time to fly to Pittsburgh, see me and my family. Howard Schnellenberger never did that. And so that was a big decision maker for me. Originally, before I was getting any letters from anybody else, I was getting a lot of interest from University of Michigan, and I was going to go there. I would have went there in a heartbeat, but the letters stopped coming. And funny situation with my first team with the Redskins, my first coach was Cam Cameron, who was the quarterback coach, offensive coordinator of Michigan at the time. And I'm like, Cam, what happened, man? He goes, well, we were recruiting 3 quarterbacks. We got the number 1 quarterback and we stopped recruiting the rest. So that's kind of how it goes. And I get that. But, that was exciting at the beginning to get those letters in the mail. Now, Mark, when I was a kid, there was no texting, there was no internet, there was none of that. So you got a letter, they could have sent it a week ago, and already by the time you got it, your mind was changed. So it was a different way to recruit back then.
It definitely was. I'll never forget this kid I went to high school with. He was like 6'4", about 230 pounds, defensive end, tight end. Our head coach held on to the mail until the end of the season, and he and I got into a little bit of we skipped a class. They brought us in. They were talking to us. And he's like, I don't know why you want to risk your future. And the kid's looking at him like, what do you mean? What have you done for me yet? And he pulls out this box and he dumps it in front of the kid. The kid had about 70 letters. He's like, there's your future right there. And I'm like, wow, And the kid never heard from anybody because he never filled out anything, never contacted anybody back. So it was interesting. I get it. I truly get it.
Well, that's tough for the kid, right? Because the kid, all the schools sent it to the coach.
Yeah.
And if the coach had any kind of animosity towards you, he could do that kind of stuff where he wouldn't give you your mail.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really sad because that kid could have changed his whole life by going to school somewhere.
Yeah. You might, Dick Dilts, he was our head football coach. He was a good one though, man. We won a lot of football games at Kiski area.
Yeah. Yeah. We never played you. We were a lot smaller than you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, tell me about your defining moment as a Golden Hurricane.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't the quarterback, but we did go play in the Freedom Bowl one year. We beat San Diego State. That was your year we upset Texas A&M in Tulsa. They always call it the Miracle on 11th Street. But, there were a lot of good games. I always think back to a lot of the fun times I had, a lot of the good times. So I think one of the defining moments for me was when TJ Rubley, who was the quarterback in front of me, got hurt, and we were playing at Arkansas. and I was the backup. I was in my second year, and I really, didn't know never played in college before. Ran the wing T in college.
Yeah.
In high school, with Harry Beckwith. And, never threw the ball like we were going to. And so come out, start firing, and I remember that the first play I was in, we were in shotgun, and Arkansas ran a zero blitz, and they just brought everybody. They brought the house, and my eyes had to be the size of a dinner plate, just seeing all that come at me. And then you get hit a couple of times, and you're just playing football like you always have. And so for me, that was a defining moment. And then just gotten to play in all the great places, going to Iowa, Oklahoma State, a lot of those schools, we were independent. So we would just play whoever we could. And a lot of the games were the same, but just going there and being able to, play college football for me was so exciting, coming from a little small high school where we only had 19 guys on our football team.
Was Mitch Frerotte? No, Mitch was gone after you were there, right?
Mitch went to Katanning. Mitch was about, 8 to 10 years older than I was. He played at Penn State, obviously was in the NFL. So when I was getting drafted, he was already playing for the Bills. He was way ahead of me in time.
Are you guys related? I never knew if you guys were.
Yeah, his father, my Uncle Paul, and my dad were brothers. My dad had 14 brothers and sisters. A few died when they were very young, but he was one of, a bunch of kids. He was the youngest boy out of the whole family. So most of my relatives are well older than me, right? Yeah. It's kind of funny. His parents, some of his brothers they passed before I was even born. So, we were related. I had an uncle, my dad's brother played for North Carolina. Another one played for Virginia. So we have kind of football in our blood.
Yeah. Coming from Western PA too. I think we're kind of bred with it like that, aren't we?
We are, and we're kind of losing a foothold in Western PA on football a little bit, where we used to, we were talking earlier about the coaches and how tough they were and how they treated us. And, and you respect that a little bit. And obviously times have changed, but I think Western PA is losing a little bit of a foothold for one reason or another. More sports have been brought into to Western Pennsylvania. We didn't have soccer. I never played soccer. We didn't have lacrosse. You know what I mean? We didn't have a lot of things. You played football, basketball, and I played baseball, and some guys ran track. Yeah. That seemed like that's all you did.
Exactly. Yep. We didn't get soccer until about 20 some years ago in Kiski area. I mean, I was long gone when they got soccer there. So I was always kind of like, what's soccer? We didn't even have it in the youth leagues when you were growing up. So it was interesting. Hey, when did you kind of get a feel that you might have a shot at the NFL? When did that come to fruition for you? Like, at what point?
I didn't really know. After my senior year of playing football, I moved back around January and lived at Pitt in Pittsburgh and did an internship with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I lived with my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now. We've been married 26 years. So she was going to Pitt. She went for nursing, and then I was staying with her, and I was interning with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And, you just kind of move on. You knew you had an internship, and I had a good senior year. Didn't know if anything was going to happen. And then I got invited to the combine. And then once I went to the combine, after that, I started getting a lot of calls from coaches. I did not do a pro day like a lot of guys do down at their school. My pro day was at Three River Stadium. Which was kind of fun. So when it was up at Pitt in their field house, they had a field house up top that had turf in it. And so I would go in there with coaches that would come in, like Jerry Glanville, Cam Cameron, a bunch of other coaches came in to work me out. And then, the Redskins end up taking me in the 7th round.
I don't think a lot of people understand what goes on with the combine. Can you share a little bit about what that was like? I mean, I know it's probably evolved since you were there, but I'm sure the same basic thing. What was the combine like?
For me, it was very interesting. I didn't go to a big school. I didn't have a lot of background about what it was going to be for me. There wasn't, I didn't have an agent who was telling me what it was going to be like. I didn't have the school and a bunch of kids before me who went there, telling me, here's what you should do. I mean, for me, it was, I go to a hotel, I got a roommate. It was Marvin Graves. He was a quarterback from Syracuse. And it's kind of funny. I remember when I met him, I'm like, hey, we're gonna be roommates. He's like, yeah, whatever. He kind of brushed me off. He said, I'm gonna be first rounder. You know, I'm not worried about trying to do this stuff here at the combine. Well, he was never even drafted, and never made it in the NFL. But for me, it was like, okay, they asked me to come in and throw every day, and I'm like, okay, that's what I'm good at, so I'll just do that.
Yeah.
And I came in and staying in a hotel. You walk to the dome. And, you know, for me, it was like, okay, what time do I got to be there? Who am I throwing to? So I'd either throw to tight ends, I'd throw to running backs, I'd throw to receivers. And then when the whole quarterback crop came in, I got to throw with all them too, you know, so I was numbered and you go through the lineup and they get to compare you to the other guys. And then, you know, just was there the full 5 days. Most times if you're just recruited as a quarterback, yeah, you just kind of go those couple of days where you throw to a few receivers, they see your skill set. But I didn't bench. I didn't go there and bench because, you know, my agent, I don't know. I didn't even know if I had an agent at that time. I just didn't bench. And then most things I didn't even know, like I'd be walking down the hall of the hotel and some scout would pull me in. He'd say, hey, I'm with, you know, so-and-so Buffalo Bills. We do this test and we test your performance of reaction time. So you go in there and they have these little crazy drills you do for reaction time. And then another guy would pull you in later on. And then I was walking down the hall one day and this coach goes, hey, you got to come in here and take this test. And I'm like, okay, didn't know anything about it. Here I sit down, I got to take the Wonderlic test. Never even heard of it.
What was that like?
You know, it's just, I can't remember how many questions are on it, 55 or something. And, you know, they just go through and it's just a random test that doesn't really test anything. Just kind of, it's not even an IQ test. I don't even know how to describe it. And I don't know how they understand how that relates to your performance. I'm sure there's a formula they use for it. Some people do way better than others. Obviously,
Yeah.
my buddy Ryan Fitzpatrick missed one question on the whole thing, you know, where I missed like 25. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, and I had no idea. I didn't study for it. I didn't even know what it was about. So I'm sure if you study for it, if you look at old Wonderlic tests, you probably can go and do pretty well on it.
What'd you score?
I don't know. I think I scored a 28.
Okay.
You know, somewhere right in the middle.
Yeah.
But you know, I think nowadays agents get the tests, they study them, and they make sure their guys don't go in. I mean, I've played with guys who's gotten 7s on them, and I've played with guys who've gotten 50s on them. So it doesn't matter. I don't know what little skill set they're looking for when they give you a Wonderlic.
Maybe the guy who's getting the 7 has only got one responsibility: rush the field, rush the quarterback.
Yeah, he was a nose tackle.
It makes sense to me. So what was it like your first time then when you get drafted 6th round? 7th round, and Heath Shuler was the first that year, correct?
That's right.
So you and Heath both go to the Skins. What's it like walking into that professional locker room for you? Because you had no idea you're headed there. You even said it. You're at Pitt working for the Pirates.
Well, you know, I went to a small high school where we had our weight room was a what was the little gym thing it was like a square, it was universal gym.
Yeah.
That was our weight room in high school, right? So we didn't have anything. Fort City didn't have any money. That was our weight room. That's how we lifted weights. So I go to Tulsa, who, you know, was way better weight room. I thought it was, you know, top notch.
Yeah.
And then you go to an NFL team and you're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like, right? This is what the real nice places are. So you go there and you're in there and you see some household names when you get there, and you're in a rookie locker room and you got to prove yourself to get to the veteran locker room.
Sure.
And I've seen rookies try to go through the veteran locker room to go to get their ankles taped and things, and that doesn't work out so well for them. Well, that was back in the day. It's not that they got hazed, but sometimes they got taped up or put in a locker or something. And you know, it was just one of those things like, yeah, you just don't do that. So it was an amazing experience. I didn't care where I was drafted as long as I went to a team, and I was super excited that it was the Redskins. It was a great challenge for me. You know, being a 7th rounder doesn't mean you're making the team. Yeah. So we had 4 quarterbacks. We had Heath Shuler, who's a first rounder. You know, he's making it. We had John Freeze. And, you know, John was a veteran who's been around a while, probably going to be the backup. And then there was myself and Pat O'Hara. And, you know, just going through the whole training camp. I went through the off season, you know, getting my reps when I could.
Yeah.
doing whatever I could, playing special teams, doing all that stuff. Learned to hold when I was there because, they said the more you can do, the longer you're going to be in this league, which made sense to me.
Sure.
And then, as we get to training camp, Heath Shuler's in a big contract holdout and doesn't come to training camp. And so who gets all his reps but me? So I get reps with the first team a bunch. I get to show that I can make all the throws. I get to show that I can improve. And by the time Heath got back, I had a bunch of reps under my belt. Obviously, if he comes back, he's going to be the starter, which I know. But as you get going, as you get the more and more reps, you're telling yourself, hey, I can do this. I can be here. I can play with these guys.
Right.
And so by the time I had my shot against Indianapolis, I had a bunch of time under my belt and was able to go out and have a good performance.
Hey, were you accepted? Like you were a 7th round draft pick, running with the first team guys while Shuler's out. How'd the guys gravitate to you? Were they pretty good with you?
Yeah, I think that, a lot of people always like the underdog. I think people like my story just from the fact that, I was a 7th rounder. Heath was the 1st rounder. People said, hey, look, you have just as much talent as he does. Obviously Heath was a hell of a runner. He was a great athlete. He deserved to be a 1st rounder for all he did. He was a Heisman runner up.
Yeah.
But when you get there in the NFL, it's a whole nother level. It's a different story and everybody has a shot. And so I was just able to go out and prove myself day in and day out that I could make the throws, that I could lead a huddle, that I could, run this offense. And so that's what I tried to do. And I really enjoyed it.
That was an interesting quarterback room you talked about. How was the dynamics amongst you guys? I mean, you
it was really good. Heath and I, it's not that we did not like each other. It's just we were same age, same competition, fighting for the same spot. It was just we were a little different. You know what I mean? He was the guy up here, and I was the guy down here, humble, just trying to make the team. So we didn't get along that great. Now I got along really well with John Freeze. Pat O'Hara ended up getting cut, and I made the team and not him. So I was thankful for that. Not that he got cut. It's always crappy when somebody gets let go. But then our dynamic was good. Our quarterback coach was awesome. Cam Cameron was an amazing quarterback coach. Had him for 3 years, and then he left. That was a really tough thing for me, right? Because Norv Turner was our head coach. He was a great play caller, but he and I didn't get along so great for some reason because Heath Shuler was his quarterback.
Yeah.
That's the one he took. And Charlie Casterly was basically the one who drafted me. And so I don't know, for one reason or another, Norv and I didn't get along, but, I respected him. I was going to do whatever he told me. And I got along really well with Cam. And so just through all of that, our room was very dynamic, had a lot of good ideas. People don't understand, like when you're a rookie, there's just certain things you got to do. Heath and I every week had a split breakfast on Friday and Saturday. So one Friday he'd get breakfast, next Friday I get breakfast for the room. Everybody put their orders in, we go get a breakfast sandwich, and just kind of stuff you had to do.
You played a long time with the Redskins. You went to several different squads along the way. But going back to the Redskins, what was your actual crowning moment as a Redskin when you walked away from the Redskins? What did you feel like you accomplished with them besides making the team?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously beating out a number 1 pick was pretty good. It was a big story for a long time in Washington. People kind of like to see that, right? That's what our country's based on, a lot of underdogs coming
Absolutely.
out and working your butt off and going out and getting what you deserve. So that was kind of a little bit, and I always have a problem with that because, I never wanted to take anybody's job, but there's only one of them, right? And so, it's up, you got to do what you can to win it. And that's what I always, the way I always looked at it. And then just going through and for me, there's a lot of things that happened in Washington, D.C. It was, I got married. I had 3 kids there, created a lot of incredible friendships. Was the last, won the last game at RFK against the Cowboys. I think we beat them 37-10.
Did not realize
which that was a big rivalry back in the day.
Yeah.
It was just so much fun seeing the bleachers bouncing in the last game, and there was a lot of emotions running that game, and then going the next game and opening up Jack Kent Cooke Stadium and beating Arizona for the opener of the next year. And then it was just great to be a part of the Redskin organization, which is called the Washington Football Team now. And, I always regret some of the stuff that happened. I mean, everybody knows a lot about my story and what I had to go through and what happened when we were playing the Giants and I scored a touchdown. And I always, the part that feels bad for me is that my kids didn't get to grow up there, that I didn't get to stay with the same team. And my wife didn't get to stay there because we, in 5 or 6 years, we created a great life and a lot of friends that, we always look back and say, man, what would have been like if we could have stayed there? And so you never know.
It's an interesting area, as I shared with you earlier. I live here, and one of the things I find most interesting, and I don't know because of where you were in life when you were here, but you can almost draw a line down the middle, and half of DC is Redskins fans or Washington Football Team, whatever you want to call them. I still call them Redskins, sorry. But half of it is that, and the other half is Dallas fans. And I've always found that rather peculiar. And then as you come out more, I live out in the Frederick area. There's a lot of Steeler fans, and you've got your Ravens fans. But like the closer you get to DC, there's almost a division there. I didn't actually get that.
Well, DC is a transient place. Every 4 or 8 years, it's changing hands. It's flipping over. There's a lot of new people coming in, and there's people from all over our country go there every day. It's an incredible place like that, as you know.
Yeah.
But back when back in the early 90s and the 80s, I mean, there was no, there was just the Redskins around that area. Like you go all the way south from there, already into North Carolina and everything. It was just the Redskins already through there.
Yeah.
My wife and I got married in Maui, and we were getting married out along the beach and sunset and everything. It was awesome. And there were Redskins fan chanting from the balcony. You know what I mean? And you just hear the stories about the old days of the Washington Football Team and how the fans were. And it's kind of gone away now, right? I think there's other things like, the Ravens are huge. Like you said, the Steelers have crept down that way, and taken over a bigger swath of fans. And the Redskins, I think, just never held on to that tradition for all those years when they won the Super Bowls and everything, and it just kind of faded away. And there are still some very diehard fans, but it's kind of shrunk. You don't even have to wait to get a ticket anymore.
I mean, personally, I'm rooting for them to come back because, like you said, that's a storied franchise. That's as storied as about any of them as there is. Dallas, Pittsburgh, the Giants, Miami even. But the Redskins, I'm patiently waiting for Ron Rivera to bring them back around. I have a lot of confidence in him restoring a lot of that.
Well, they have great coaches now. I think that, it's not like they didn't have good coaches before. I think Ron will do a great job. And they really have to figure out who they are again.
Yeah.
Dan Snyder's taken over that team, and they really haven't figured out who they are, what kind of team they're going to be. It almost feels like, you hate to say it, like a Bengals Browns kind of thing now, where they're just kind of floating. They don't really know who they are. They have the same talent as every other team in the NFL every year. Why can't they win? Why can't they put a good team out there? What is going on? And so I'm with you. I hope they come back. I hope they get back. I mean, there's a lot of old, guys that I played with and before me that are hoping that, they get back to where they were.
Sure.
Because if they ever do, I mean, there's no better place to go to a game.
Yeah, I can imagine. Hey, you played, what I said, about 15 years. Who do you feel, if you had to point the finger at one individual, who do you feel had the most impact on your longevity and your career in the league?
Oh man, there's just so many people, that I can thank. Starting with my high school head coach, Harry Beckwith, who's not with us anymore, to my college coach, Dave Rader, who really taught me how to throw the football downfield and timing and going from a wing T offense in high school to a full out 5 wide, offense in college and getting ready to play pro style, to my first quarterback coach in Cam Cameron. Cam, I feel like, was essential in why I was able to play as long as I did. He not only worked with me day in, day out, we didn't have the rules like they do now with the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
And saying you can only practice this long, you can't be in this facility this long in the off season. we didn't have those rules. And so if I wanted to go out and throw with the receiver for 6 hours, I could. There was nobody telling you not to.
Yeah.
So that's how I got better. Cam was there through it all, and we just had a great relationship. And I thought that he was a phenomenal coach for me. And then just, every team I went to, tried to find somebody that I could work with, could deal with. But I played for 7 teams, and everywhere you go, there were a few friends you make along the way. And,
Sure.
and John Freeze was one of those guys for me. He's out in Idaho in Coeur d'Alene. He lives there, and I don't get to see him as much as I used to. But we were together quite a few years, and he was a great guy.
Where was your favorite place to play then? I know you said you have a lot of fond memories of playing in Washington, D.C., but was there, is there any place that you liked even more? Or
I'll just say this: I played a lot of places. Anytime you get to go out between the white lines is my favorite place.
Yeah.
I played in, where I didn't have great games, but hey, I was still out there. I had wonderful games, and you just take it all in. I played in every stadium, not some of the new stadiums, but when you go to the away games and you hear the crowds, and when you're out there and you can't even hear yourself, you go to a dome or you go to Kansas City. I remember we were playing a game in Kansas City when I was with the Skins, and we're standing on the sideline, and 4 jets flew over, and then the stealth bomber flew over. And I looked around, and every single one of the guys was staring up in the air like, whoa. And then they play the national anthem. At the end, they say Chiefs, and I'm like, it's going to be a long day. We got our butts kicked that day, but, it was just an amazing experience.
I can imagine every time you went out there, you probably, just knowing from your humble beginnings, you probably took it all in, and that's why you've got such vivid memories of it all. Hey, who was the best receiver you ever played with?
Oh man, it's hard to name just one. I played with so many. When I was with the Skins, I played with Henry Ellard for a long time. Hop was just amazing. He helped me in so many ways, and I can't thank him enough. As a young kid coming in, he had patience with me, never got upset with me. I probably laid him out a few times where I shouldn't have, but he was just amazing. I loved working with Henry. And then you move on through all the teams. I mean, I can just go down the line of all the great players: Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, Chris Chambers, Marty Booker in Miami, Wes Welker, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt in St. Louis. I go to Cincinnati, and I got Chad Ochocinco and TJ Hushmanzada, and then you just go around. I go to Minnesota, and I play with Randy Moss. And it's just like, okay, if I ever get in, I'm going to have a hell of a lot of fun. You just throw the ball as far as you can and let my man go get it.
I mean, I'm thinking about what you just said from St. Louis alone. Like that was the greatest show on turf. The 2 guys, they took them to the top.
Yeah, the problem was they were my age, but I still got to play with them when I played there, in 06, 07. But, and then it's just so many great guys that it's hard to say one was better than. Obviously Moss just did some amazing things, and I saw him do time and time again incredible things on the football field. But I saw all those guys I played with. Well, the one thing they all had in common was they came to work every day and they worked their tails off. You could say what you want about Randy and personality, but they all worked. They went in there, they knew what they had to do, and they worked extremely hard to be as good as they were.
So would you say that your chemistry? All right, let's go back. I said the best receiver you play with. Who did you have the best chemistry with? Because that's a little bit of a different, different element there.
Yeah, there were a lot of guys. When I was in Denver, I was only there 2 years, but Rod Smith and Ed McCaffrey just had a great bond with them, had a great chemistry with them. Obviously, I didn't play that much in Minnesota with Randy because Dante was there, and Dante played a lot of games.
Yeah.
So probably in Denver, I had a great chemistry with those guys. And then the one year I was in Miami, and I had Marty Booker and Chris and Wes Welker.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like I was home with those guys, and it's crazy because you weren't there for a long time with them. You were only there for a very short time in the off season throwing routes with them, but you just get some of those bonds. And when I was young and not, very naive about things, probably Henry Ellard helped me the most out of anybody.
And that's a feather in your cap, though, to have all those guys that you learned from and be able to extend your career like you did. NFC East, ferocious football back in the day, right?
Right.
What was it like game week playing the Cowboys? Because I know that rivalry used to be just so special to watch.
Well, it's a big week, because as you get younger, as your team gets younger, right? Every year you're getting younger and younger guys. Those old days are going by the wayside. So unless you have the veterans carrying on that rivalry and talking about that in the locker room, you don't see it as much.
Yeah.
Until you actually experience it and get to play in it.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, I know why this is a rivalry. So whether they came to DC or we went to Dallas, it was just always a great game. When the Cowboys were early on in the 90s, they just had such amazing talent. And they were just heads above everyone else for a while. But it didn't matter. When we played them, we thought we could beat them.
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes a great rivalry. And we see it all the time in the NFL. If you watch the Jets and the Patriots last week, the Jets should have won that game. And nobody even said they should be close. And I don't know how they lost that game, but they should have won that game.
Right.
And when you go to rivalries, there's just something about it, even though you may have never played there before, but you just feel the emotion, the energy, and you hear about it through the week. And good coaches will kind of give you that background through the week in your playbooks, getting ready for the week. Here's the stories about when last time that they played, and here's what was on the line, those types of things, and it kind of builds up rivalry. And I think that's great for divisional play.
Once you step on the field, though, like you said, between the white lines, is it just another football game, or can you sense that kind of heated passion from it being a rivalry when the whistle blows?
Yeah, I think you can sense that. I've played in games where you feel like guys aren't at the top of their game. They're just like, it's just another game, And then when you get to a rivalry, you can't act like that. It's just a little. It's an uptick of where it usually is in the NFL.
Who was your most, let's just say, who was the most difficult team? Who did the Redskins hate playing outside of the division? Who was tough to play outside the division?
Baltimore was, when they came back to Baltimore, the Ravens were always really good. They were building good teams. But outside of the division, I'm just trying to think. Every game in the NFL is a tough game. We played a lot of good games. We lost a lot of good games. But other than that, I can't really, it's hard to say who was the toughest team we played, because every week's tough, and you can't ever take anybody for granted.
Now, I only ask you that question because I know people sit back and they say, they should blow them out and they should have crushed them and the game's tighter or there's an upset. And it's like, hey, these guys are paid professionals and they're paid to do a job and they're trying to make more money doing the job. So why would you think that they would just roll over like that? You gave a great example talking about the Patriots and Jets game. And there's other games, that Pittsburgh-Dallas game, everybody thought Pittsburgh 13-point favored was going to blow them out. It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way.
No. And when you look at Tampa Bay and the Saints, right, there's a rivalry who you say to yourself, it's going to be a close game, and it ends up being a blowout. You never know week to week what's going to happen. And that's what makes the NFL great.
Yeah.
And that's what really the parity and the week to week. And that's why people love to watch it, and that's why I love playing in it.
What do you think the game is different today, though, compared to when you played? Because you've been out of the game for a little while now.
Oh yeah, the game's a lot different. Just being able to do, the game. Somebody asked me the other day if I think the game is going to continue to change. Yes, as rules change, the game changes.
Yeah.
If you look at the reason why our game has changed, it's because of the rules, and that's it, right? You can't cut block. You can't hit somebody in the back of the knees. Well, back in the day, they did that all the time. You can't, put a what's his name used to do for the Raiders all the time and tackle people. There's just certain things, and as the rules change, the games change. We've seen it, pass interference rules change. We've seen, face mask rules change. All that stuff. They try to make it better. Sometimes it makes it worse. And, they talk about, well, these guys are all wimps now compared to, well, anybody who says that really never, ever played an NFL game. Right. We've seen the Jack Lamberts of the back in the day who were crazy, but, we all see his good plays. Jack played for a long time. I guarantee you can go out and find a lot of crappy plays that Jack had too, where he got his ass kicked. Right. Yep. But we don't see those. No. Right. So, the game has changed a lot, but it's still super physical, super vicious. We see every week. I guarantee you this weekend you're going to see somebody get hurt on a crazy play. Somebody, guys are running full speed. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger than they ever have been. So it's a different game for sure.
It's interesting to watch it continue to evolve. And you think about Lambert, even thinking about guys in the 90s who played, and then guys in the early 2000s, and then the young kids coming in now. We got this kid in my high school. I probably talked about him a few times on here that I mentor some and work with some. He's 6'4". He's probably close to 200 pounds now. He was recruited across the country. Chris Samuels is our offensive coordinator at my high school.
Nice.
And, he was saying to me just the other day, I interviewed Chris. He was saying this kid could probably play in the league right now. He definitely is not mature enough mentally, but physical skills, he could do it right now. And that's a 17-year-old kid you're talking about.
Yeah, that's hard. It really is hard. That's a few and far between if a guy can go at 17 and play in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's not like basketball where you can kind of, basketball, they can run around. You can be a good shooter. You can play early, or, like LeBron was a man amongst boys. He could go out and do it. But it's just, it's a different sport than any other sport out there. I'd love to do a survey one day and say, how many guys smoke cigarettes today compared to, 1980? Think about that. Like, they were smoking cigarettes in the locker room at halftime in those games, right? And
that's wild.
The whole way we look at health and human fitness and performance, all that stuff has changed.
That makes me think about the video clip you see every once in a while when Kansas City was in one of the first Super Bowls, and Len Dawson was having a cigarette on the bench after he threw a touchdown pass. It's just so different. Yeah, heck, you probably remember Jim Leland, how he used to go down the tunnel in Pittsburgh. He'd catch a cigarette during a game. He was so nervous.
Yeah, didn't he smoke him like some way where he kind of had it under his hand so nobody would see it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You could never pull that off today. They don't even chew tobacco today in the league. So in baseball. Were you a Steeler fan growing up?
I was. That's why I had the number 12. I was a Terry Bradshaw fan. I grew up in the 70s. What better era in the 70s to be a Steeler fan in than in the 70s. All those guys, we watched them every Sunday. We would go out to our home high school football field. We had pickup games, right? We all made sure we went to church on Saturday night. We go play Sunday morning before the games, and we were all home by 1 o'clock to watch the Steelers play. It's not like now. Like my sons and I, we watch the NFL Red Zone, where we watch every game. Every time somebody gets in the red zone, you see every score, and it's like overload, but it's awesome, right? Back in the day, you just watched the Steelers. That was it.
I just watch the Steelers still. Now I'll watch some Thursday night. I might watch a little bit of a Monday night, maybe some, but I still just kind of focus on what they have going on, and I just read about the rest of it because it's a lot. There's a lot. I'm a big college football guy too, so I enjoy that aspect of watching football today more than ever.
Yeah, college football is fun. I think that there's a lot of good storylines, especially if you're a big fan of what's going on in college football, and there's many different divisions. You can play. And college football is endless with what's going on. This year is completely different.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just, that NFL, I would love it if they had a game every night of the week. I could watch it.
Yeah. Gus, you think there should be college football playoffs besides the 4 teams? You think they should open that thing up?
It's such a hard thing to try and figure out, right? Because, if you open it up more, how far do you open it up? How long does the season go? These guys are already, in a spot that, they're working overtime, because when you get to college, it's a job.
Yeah.
It's not like you're just going to school and having fun playing a sport. It's a job. It's lifting, running, going to meetings, going to class, don't be late, do all these things. But if you could open it up maybe to 8, would more people be satisfied? I don't know. But it goes off of your season record, right? They're going to try and open it up this year in the NFL. I don't know how that's going to go either. Maybe no team's going to get a bye this year. So who knows what's going to happen? And so I think that the whole college championship thing is still kind of young.
Yeah.
And, when we look back 20 years from now, probably may have changed 2 or 3 times. So
Sure.
I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see as that goes forward. I just kind of feel like some of the smaller schools, like a Cincinnati right now, the level of football they're playing, I'd love to see them match up with some of the perennial powerhouses just to see how that actually plays itself out.
Yeah, I think that they should give those guys an opportunity to do that, because if those powerhouses are that good, they're going to win the game, right?
Yep.
But give other people an opportunity, right? They're all in Division I. Everybody should have an opportunity. So if you win your division, if you win your, Pac-12, Big Ten, you should be able to have a chance to play for a national championship.
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about your celebration when you were in DC. Kind of reminds me when Kirk Cousins came in the locker room and how you like that type of mentality. Talk a little bit about your incident in DC when you were all pumped up and you headbutted the wall.
Yeah, no, it was just, I was having some issues with North Turner. We were going back and forth about different things, and we were playing the Giants, was a big rivalry in DC as well,
Yeah.
just as big as Cowboys or the Eagles. And it was just one of those things where I just had all this pressure on me, and then able to run a touchdown in, and it was in the new stadium. So score a touchdown, run through the end zone. I'm like, God, haven't been here in a long time. Usually I'm throwing them. So run through, throw the ball off the wall, just go to jump off the wall and lean my head forward and do that. And, got a stinger and in my right shoulder. If it had been in my left shoulder, wouldn't have been any problems. And then right after that happened, my tight end, Jamie Asher, came up and smacked me right in the side of the head. And I remember that that didn't feel good either. And then just sitting there on the sidelines, and, you're playing in front of 75 million on TV and everybody sees it, and it just is what it is, and the team wanted to fine me for it and do all these things to me. And I'm like, hey, you got to do what you got to do. It just happened. It's not something I ever thought of, or, hey, I'm going to try this celebration. That's not one of those things, right? It just happened. And it happens so be that, like I tell my kids, I'll be on ESPN the rest of my life and probably their lives.
That's okay, man. It is what it is. I mean, I've seen, we've seen so many different things happen throughout the course of time. I watch those guys. I watch guys like Antonio Brown beat up a water jug on the sidelines. I mean, to me, what you did was just an adrenaline move. What he did was an anger move. And I've always just been kind of like, man, the guy just scored an NFL touchdown. I don't care how many it is for him. He's pumped up, and I'm good with that.
Well, and the thing is that the way I look at it is people in life go through all kinds of adversity.
Sure.
I'm not immune to it. I've been through it all my life. People have helped me through it. And sometimes just like that, I created my own.
Yeah.
And you either going to go hide and, go into a car and say, okay, I'm never going to come out, or, lock yourself in a room, or you're just going to say, I'm going to face the music. And I just face the music, and you just say, I'm going to move on. And you know what? If the Redskins aren't the team for me, if they don't like what I can do for them, then I'll just move on, and I end up playing another 10 years after that. So,
Yeah.
People have situations that come into their life, and you either got to kind of face them head on or hide from them.
Hey, man, you were blessed. You were blessed to play that long in the league. Honestly, it's a 7th round pick. Talk some about your post-playing days when you started coaching out in St. Louis. What was that like for you? That's a different animal, going from the NFL to high school football.
Well, my first year out, I tried to coach my son's youth team, and I found out real quick I wasn't cut out for that, because that's that's a whole nother barrier that's too hard to get over. I tried to go back to wing T. I studied the wing T again and said, we're going to teach these kids how to do the wing T. But the problem was I was the only one that knew it. None of the other coaches in St. Louis knew anything about the wing T. So I'm trying to teach every position. It just got too much. And it probably did a detriment to all those kids on the team. We had a lot of fun that year. We didn't win many games, but we had a lot of fun. And then through that time, it was also my kids were at a school called John Burroughs in St. Louis. And I just started helping out. Asked the coach if I could come around. He said, yeah, sure. Just like a lot of guys, they want to go help when they're done. What do we know? We know football. Yeah. So we want to go somewhere where our kids are and we want to help. Unfortunately, a lot of coaches don't want that help. When I came back to Pittsburgh, they didn't really like me being around. Even though I did help coach a little bit and I had to leave because it's not my team, it's not my place. I wasn't one of their guys. But in John Burroughs, when the coach, he retired, the school asked me to be the head coach after that. And then we went on to go to 3 state championships. And it was a lot of fun. I had great parents, I had great coaches, and I had great players. And they weren't all athletes, right? They were just loved the game. They loved being around each other. I had 2 incredible athletes who are playing in the NFL right now, Ezekiel Elliott and Foye Oluokun. And just being able to coach and share the knowledge that I gained from all my years of playing with people. And it's funny, all the kids say I was way too hard on the quarterbacks, but that's the position I knew. So everyone else, I had a lot of fun with, but the quarterbacks I was always really hard on.
Did you stick with the wing T? Because that's pretty simple up front.
Oh, no. I went back to running. I took the old coach's kind of stuff. He had a lot of things that he did. It was a lot of empty and let a lot of the kids play the game, right? We didn't try to see. I always felt like the wing T was great, but you only had a couple kids doing a lot of the work. And I really thought that every athlete on offense should try and touch the ball, should have an opportunity to score and make plays, do all that work for each other. And so we try to incorporate all of that. And we had a lot of fun doing it. Obviously, we had Ezekiel as he got older. He was kind of unstoppable. But we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of guys. We only had 28 guys every year, and I really enjoyed my time there.
You ever think about getting back into coaching at any level?
Well, I tried to get back into the NFL after being out for several years. So when I moved back to Pittsburgh, I said, okay, we're back home now. My wife is from here. She went to Pitt. My kids are going to Central Catholic. Maybe I should try to be in the NFL. I went back, did the circles, went back to the combine to meet all the coaches, went to the Senior Bowl, did all those things. And, I'd see all these coaches that I played for or were my friends, right? Yeah. And I'd say, hey, I'm trying to get back in it, and what should I do? And they would give me some advice. And then they would go, oh, let me know if you need any help. And I'm like, so I'm standing here, right? So those phone calls never happened. And so I just figured after a year I'd give up, and it wasn't meant to be. I think when you want to coach in the NFL, after you're done playing, you got to start right away. You can't take time off and then go back. Like you got to start coaching right away after you're done playing.
Start doing like an internship type of thing.
Yeah, because you're going to have to be at the bottom for a while, which I always told these guys I didn't have a problem with, but they're like, Gus, we know you. You played 15 years. You were a high school head coach. You're going to try and tell people what to do. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably true because they're doing it wrong. And He's like, yeah, we can't have that, right? You can't come in knowing more than everybody else. And so that was just hard. If I would have started, I could have started in a different situation, but it didn't happen for me that way.
You never know what will come down the pike for you again. Maybe Riverview could use you.
Well, funny story there. When I moved back to Oakmont, I applied for the head coaching job, and they did not hire me.
Wow.
It was between me and another guy who never coached before. And there I was coming from St. Louis and being at Central Catholic. And I said, look, I live in Oakmont. I'd love to coach at Riverview. And so I went in for the meetings. It was between myself and another guy. And I find out that the other guy was the athletic director's best friend. So there you go.
Yeah. Good. It's still the good old boy network back there then, huh?
Oh, yeah. I think it is a lot.
Hey, you ever play any golf up in Oakmont since you got all that time?
I do play golf at Oakmont. I'm a member at the Field Club over in Fox Chapel, which is a lot of fun. My boys and I play a lot. But I play every now and then. I have a few friends there. Oakmont's a monster, and it's a tough golf course.
So you got into working as VP of Brain Health Initiatives for RC21X. Talk a little bit about that because I know head injuries have been a huge, huge concern in the NFL, in high school, in college. And I teach that stuff, not only about head injuries from football, but across the board. We don't see it that, as it just being across the board. They really think it's more of a football thing. But talk about what you did for them.
Yeah, so I met Clarence Carlos, who's the CEO of RC21X. His son was playing football at Central Catholic. Well, my sons were older. My wife knew him because my wife was always volunteering and handing out the food to the boys before the game and all that stuff. And she'd always talk to Clarence, and she goes, "You got to meet this Clarence guy." And I said, "All right, I'll meet him sometime." I never even knew him, and we had a pregame little party at our house before we played Penn Hills, and Clarence and I talked for about an hour in my kitchen, and he said, "Why don't you come over, see what we're doing? Love for you to get involved." And so I went over and spent about 2 years working with RC21X, moved on after that. But what they really did was they took neuropsych tests that if you go into a neuropsychologist, you take those tests, finger tapping,
Sure.
all that stuff. And they partnered with the Human Performance Center to the University of Texas in Arlington. And they wrote new algorithms and took those tests and put them on a phone so that anybody can get their scores now. So we're looking at your true brain performance where, when you go for concussion testing and different things, they're testing all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's nothing out there that really gives you your score on your phone.
Right.
And that's what RC21X did. And it's called the Roberto app. We partnered with the Clementi family.
Oh.
And because, obviously Roberto Clementi had a mission to not as a baseball player, but as a humanitarian to try and help everyone. And that's what we wanted to do. And so we partnered with the Clementi family, and the app is called Roberto, and anyone can get it. You can go on there and you can monitor your brain performance day in and day out so that if you notice any changes, something's wrong, right? So if you're taking a new heart medication, if you fell and slipped on the ice, is your performance bad? From things like marijuana, like medical marijuana. If you're driving a truck and you get in an accident, they test you for that. And if you have marijuana in your system, they're going to say you had marijuana and that's why. But no, maybe your performance never changed.
Okay.
So if you're drinking, your performance goes way down. So there's all these things. If you have Alzheimer's, all these ways that our brain is affected by all these things, especially with concussions and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's a tool that really you play 8 simple games, you get your score, and then you can check yourself over time to see if your scores have changed or not.
Is it a free app or is it something I need to pay for?
It's not free. I think it's like $1.99 a month.
Okay.
It's not very expensive, but they're partnering with ROTC. All those kids going into the military.
Yeah.
How does their performance change? Anything kids in high school, how does their performance change? Any athletes, even people in nursing homes. They could play the game, and as if you have somebody in a nursing home, they can play the game, check their performance, because most of our parents were way too proud to tell us anything.
Yeah.
Right? That anything's
Absolutely.
wrong. They don't want to worry you. But if they play these games, say their score's at 200, then all of a sudden the next time you check and it's down to 75, you're saying, "Mom, what's wrong?" Right?
Yeah.
And then you can really get to the crux of it, where you get real data and analytics from it. And since RC21, I still help them. I still work with them a little bit here and there. But since then, I've been working with the Energy Innovation Center. It's the old Conley Trade School in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And I'm currently building a studio. I became the ambassador for the NFL Alumni Association here. I'm building our headquarters down there. And then I also will do a multimedia studio where you can run a podcast. We're going to do business reels for people. We're going to do education out of there so that, people that are unemployed can come in and train for new technologies. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. So the Energy Innovation Center has been one of my favorite places I've been since I've retired, because they just do so much for people.
It sounds like you keep yourself really busy, but you're doing really productive things. And that's admirable, to be quite honest with you. I know you do your podcast, Huddle Up with Gus. You want to tell everybody? Oh, whoa. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Gus.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So last thing I do, which keeps me busy, is I put out a podcast for every Monday. It's called Huddle Up with Gus. The website is huddleupwithgus.com. And basically we talk to people about how sports shapes their life.
Yeah.
If I interviewed you, I would just ask you, Mark, what was that first moment when you were a kid where you fell in love with sports? And it's so different for everyone we talk to.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's your dad throwing balls in the backyard. Sometimes it's just going to play with all your buddies in the backyard. Sometimes you had an idol and you wanted to be like them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was a big brother, big sister. Everybody had a different story. I just interviewed Matthew McConaughey, was my last episode. He'll be out on Monday, this coming Monday. And he talked about, his dad wasn't a perfect man, maybe drank a little too much, but didn't really want much to do with Matthew in sports. But his older brother wasn't a great athlete. And so his older brother always told him, no, you're playing. No, you're playing. You're going to do these. So we all have those different stories to tell, and really how it got us through life. And I think sports is so important to everyone.
Yeah.
I love hearing people's story about how sports changed their life, influenced them, and helped them transition to an adulthood and help them to get to where they are today.
I always talk about when I'm teaching and I do the nutrition stuff and the fitness stuff. I always talk about how being an athlete makes you structured, makes you healthy. It keeps you focused, and I encourage a lot of these kids. And some of them don't realize that they're doing athletic things already. They don't realize that. And you have to point that out to them. They'll be like, well, I walk about 15, 20 minutes to school and I walk home. And I'm like, yeah. So you are doing something athletic, and it may not be in a team sport, but you're doing something to start improving your life.
And a lot of times we find our mentors through athletics too. Somebody that we can always go back to, talk to, that really helped you, pushed you in ways that you weren't used to. Maybe you didn't get those kind of things at home, but a lot of times coaches can be great mentors to you as well, and help you when times are tough. You go back, there's something in your brain that says, oh, remember when Coach Beckwith said, yeah, you can do it. We got 3 more reps.
Right.
And you just wore out and you're tired. Then you realize that somehow that pushed you through the rest of your life.
You have any of those kids from the high school out in St. Louis come back to you and be like, Coach,
well, what's great is on, social media, I can connect with a lot of them. If I find them on social media, I'll connect with them. I'll say hi. I don't bother them. If they want to talk, I'm more than happy to talk to them. But some of the kids have gone on, and one of my favorites was Jack Grady. Jack was a linebacker. He had autism. He was, 150 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
And he was one of our starting linebackers. We had a 3-5 defense, and that kid loved the game. And I connect with Jack all the time. He's this kid that went on to Duke, graduated top of his class. He started, he was a huge Harry Potter fan. He started Quidditch and all this stuff there. And then he went on and to Africa and studied animals. He'd send me pictures of lions and hyenas, and he was just a great kid. So I created a lot of great connections. And when you're a coach, you can do that. I know when my high school coach, my wife's dad, passed away, Harry, he didn't want a lot of people around his funeral and doing all those things, but there are a lot of people that have a lot of great memories of Harry and what he did for all of them.
I remember him. I never played against Fort City or Katanning when I was growing up, because we were much bigger high school, but I do remember him. I remember his, just guy.
Yeah, he made the Pennsylvania Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Coached for 42 years, coached a lot of kids. Wasn't always easy on them, but, if you needed food, if you needed a ride or whatever, he was always there for you.
They don't understand that today. And we talked about that a little bit. Football's so different even back there than what it was many, many years ago when you and I played at the high school level in Western Pennsylvania. I mean, they were tough on you, but they loved you and they taught you a lot of life lessons, whereas you can't necessarily be that tough today. It's just a little bit.
You could be tough. I mean, I was tough on my kids in St. Louis, but the thing was, I went and I met with all the parents before the season would start.
Yeah.
And I would sit down, I'd put them in the bleachers, and I'd give them a piece of paper, and I'd say, hey, look, I need you guys to sign this, right? Because here's the deal. It's between me and your sons.
Yeah.
If you have an issue, let them handle it. And if we can't work it out between the two of us, then you can get involved. But you can't just call me out of the blue because your son's not playing or you have an issue, right? Let them handle it. That's the way they grow up. And all the parents signed it. And if I had an issue, I just went back to that paper and said, look, here's the deal. We made a deal, right? You can't call me until 24 hours after the game. You have to let your son work it out. If we can't, we'll come to something afterwards, right? And the parents loved it. And I was hard on some kids. I was really hard, where I called timeouts in games when kids weren't playing up to their full potential. And this kid was wealthy. One kid on our team was super wealthy. He didn't have to do this stuff. But he didn't want to let his teammates down.
Yeah.
And that was a valuable lesson for him to learn.
That's excellent, though. Again, I was a head football coach, offense coordinator. I did it for 15, 17 years, and I kind of backed off because of my own kids. I give back in a different way today, but I still see a lot of changes in the kids. I wouldn't want that job currently. As much as I miss it, I don't think I'd want it. I just want to get in the trenches, teach, and move on. Go ahead home.
Yeah, well, it's just a different mentality. You got to connect with them on social media. You got to find other ways to influence them, to get them to work hard. It's not the same, right, as when we were going.
No.
When we got in the car when we were kids, when I got into my Camaro, my dad bought me my senior year to go to football practice. I put on the radio or put AC/DC in. That's it. There was no phone. There was none of that stuff, right? And I couldn't wait to get up there so I could BS with my buddies in the locker room.
Yeah, exactly.
And today it's like, as soon as I get out of class, I got 25 texts and I'm answering all those and you're distracted. And so I think coaches today have to figure that out between how do I get them excited about what we're doing, but not interrupt the flow of life now, right? And so old school coaches are having the hardest time with that.
Absolutely. Hey, if you wouldn't have played professional sports, where were you headed with your career? What did you want to be?
Oh man, I wanted to work out in the wilderness somewhere. I wanted to be a ranger, not like an Army Ranger, which my wife's little brother HB was, but I wanted to be out and work for state parks, be out fishing somewhere, doing that, being out in the wilderness. That's how I grew up, and that's what I love to do. But paths all change, and you kind of go with the flow, and better things came along.
Did you fish a lot out of Crooked Creek when you were growing up?
All the time, from the spillway all the way down to Allegheny.
Absolutely. Hit the beaches once in a while when it was nice out too, right?
Every now and then. But I just, if I had something to do, I was gonna go fishing, smallmouth bass fishing or trout fishing in the spring.
Top 5. I do this segment called Decade Definers, and I want you to share with us, for my last segment with you, some of the top DBs you faced in your career. I won't even put a number on it. I'll let you.
Oh man, I don't. I mean, there's so many, because it wasn't like it was just one quarterback, right? When you think about DBs, you just think about corners, or do you think about safeties, strong safeties?
No corners.
So I've got to play against a lot of great guys. I mean, Felipe Sparks was really good in with the Giants. Deion Sanders, obviously. Every time you played him, you knew that, he was going to play half the field and the rest of the team was going to play the other half. So he was always really good. I'm just trying to think of some of the DBs that I've played against. Obviously, when you think about safeties, there's Ed Reed and all those guys. But oh man, there's just so many. I wish I had a list of all the guys that picked me off in my career. Through all the years, Peanut Tillman up in Chicago, those guys were always good. I mean, every team you play against always have great athletes, great players on defense, and I was lucky to play with some really good ones, and unlucky to play against some other ones. Champ Bailey comes to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in Miami. We were playing the Broncos. Threw a little curl route. My receiver falls down, hits Champ in the chest, and I'm like, darn it, I wasn't supposed to throw a pick like that. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that happens, and you get upset. But that's part of the game.
Yeah. Hey, I want to thank you for your time. It's been great just talking football with you, Gus. I wish you luck. Don't forget to listen to Gus on his podcast, Huddle Up with Gus, and take care of yourself. It was good talking with you.
Yeah. Take care of yourself. Good luck with that online teaching. I know that can't be easy for you.
Well, they're telling us now we're going to be heading back soon. So As the rates go up, they're putting us back into school. We'll see how it works out.
Well, Steel City Nation, I'm looking forward to hearing the show, and let me know when it comes out, and I'll definitely share it.
I appreciate it, Gus. Take care.
All right, take care.